Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to give you what, in my humble opinion, is evidence that Dungeons and Dragons is not a game. All right, let's get into it. All right, so I believe that Dungeons and Dragons is not a game. I actually believe what it is that Gary Gygax was prescient. He saw what was coming in our world, and he was very good at seeing what was coming next for humanity. He had also lived through the nuclear detonations, the only nuclear detonations in history, the Vietnam War, and the emergence of America in a time of intense struggle and intense change, right? And I think he saw all this, and he desperately wanted to help humanity, and I believe that what he did was he was like, I want to build a human improvement engine, right? And I think what he did was he identified that story would be the best way to do this. And so what he did is he transformed how humans tell stories, and he created the greatest narrative engine that's ever existed. It surpassed Germanic tales, it surpassed all written books, it surpassed the big and the small screen, and he created this way for specific people to make stories that were specifically crafted for other people, giving them extra life, right? And giving them a way to identify fears, to identify foibles, to identify weaknesses, and improve them, right? So I don't believe for 1 second that Dungeons & Dragons is a game, okay? Now, most people believe that Dungeons & Dragons is a game. Why? Why do they believe that? 2 companies told them that. So TSR told them, and by the way, I think Gary Gygax hid this human improvement engine as a game because he knew if he said, hey, I built a human improvement engine, everybody would say, nope. And I don't think that's any different today than it was back then, right? So in my humble opinion, Gary Gygax hid a human improvement engine as a game, right? And now 47 years later, I'm the only one person who can see this, really. And I'm trying to show the world, like, this is what happened in 1974, right? And I know I'm a guy standing alone in a field on this one, right? But I'm asking you, come out to the field with me, right? But I'm not going to ask you to do that on faith, right? I need to present evidence. So I'm going to do that today, okay? Now, first of all, why do people believe that Dungeons & Dragons is a game? Well, because they were told by 2 companies that's the case. TSR told them it was a game, and WotC started telling people in 1997 it's a game, and they're still saying it today, right? I don't agree with that. I think it's wrong, right? I think it's a misunderstanding of what Gary Gygax actually accomplished, okay? All right, now let's get into what I believe is a point of evidence that Dungeons & Dragons is not a game. All right, I listened to a podcast called Slate Political Gabfest. And I've been listening to it for 15 years. I've seen it multiple times in person, and I absolutely love it. It's brilliant. Has 3 people. David Plotz, he's a Harvard graduate, okay, who has been the CEO of multiple companies. He's an author, okay? And the accolades could go on, okay? Emily Bazelon, she is a Yale graduate. She is now a writer after she quit being a lawyer, right? And she teaches at Yale now, and she's an author of multiple books, right? Absolutely brilliant, right? Last dude on the podcast is John Dickerson. I think he's the only one who didn't go to an Ivy League school. He went to the University of Virginia, which is a very prestigious institution, right? He has been a tier 1 journalist. He's written multiple books. He's considered a SME, a subject matter expert on historical U.S. presidents. He is a multiple book author. All these people are absolutely brilliant, bar none, and have achieved massive success in their lives and continue to just go higher and higher and higher up the American success ladder, right? I've met every single one of them in person. I've been to multiple live, political gabfests, and these people are an incredibly important part of my life, and I've learned a tremendous amount from them, right? Slate Political Gabfest, highly recommended. It's a 1-hour synopsis of the news each week. It's my most favorite audio every single week, and it has been for 15 years. It's amazing, okay? You should add it to your life if you should add it to your life. Period. End of sentence. Done. Right? Like you're gonna learn, right? All right. They cover politics and they do American political commentary. Okay. When they're done, they do what's called a Slate Plus segment, right? And they just talk about fun subjects, and they bring a Harvard graduate mind, a Yale graduate mind, and a University of Virginia graduate mind, and they just tackle these incredibly high, in-depth subjects, right? Well, this week, David Plotz was like, what is a game and what is not a game? This was brought on by the Olympics, right? They were actually taking the time to watch the Olympics. And David Plotz said, this is all coming out of luge. Luge is not a game, right? It's a physical activity, right? And the reality is nothing your competitors do can affect you. You drop down this chute, you move your legs a little bit, and then you come out the other end and somebody times it, right? It is absolutely not a game, right? And he said, here's why that luge is not a game, okay? He said, in a game, someone does better and someone does worse, and what you do affects your competitor, right? And then Emily Bazelon said, yeah, I see that, right? And she essentially accepted his definition, right? And then John Dickerson said, yeah, that makes sense, and then they discussed it, and the three of them agreed that what David Plotz had said was sound, right? Now, let's take that brilliant Harvard mind, his idea confirmed by a Yale mind, his idea confirmed by a University of Virginia mind, right? Brilliant American achievers, every single one, a brilliant American achiever, every single one, highly educated, every single one, massive, a multiple book author, right? Like all of them, like they're brilliant, right? Like, and so this group comes to it and they say, yeah, if you're doing something and someone does better and someone does worse, and what you do affects your competitor, that's a game. But if you don't fit that, it's not a game, right? D&D does not fit that, right? Basically, the biggest part of that, someone does better, someone does worse, right? Actually, your character can die, right? And if that death comes at a heroic moment, or even if you just came into the game and you've been playing for 6 months and the dice go bad, right? Nobody's going to say you did worse than another player who's still alive, right? There are multiple paths to success. So in Dungeons & Dragons, if you could have a table where 4 people have dramatically different experiences and they've all done the best they could do, right? And they've all had a successful game, right? You could say, we have achieved what we wanted to achieve from this Dungeons & Dragons game, right? Also, there are no competitors, right? Only the worst dungeon masters think they're in competition with players. Only players who have not read the book think that they are doing better than another player, that their job is that anybody at the table is their competitor, right? Players are not competitors to other players. In fact, they're allied to achieve the same thing, which is to tell an amazing story and conduct themselves in a collaborative storytelling. And I believe from that they will improve, right? As people, right? I believe that Dungeons & Dragons is a collaborative engine. However, is a human improvement engine. However, believe it or not, the way Gary designed it, you don't need to believe that for it to happen to you. In fact, I'm convinced you may actually get more out of Dungeons. I don't know if I want to say that, right? I think it has improved people who think it's a game. He designed it this way. He designed it to improve people, even if they did, despite while they didn't even understand they were being improved as people. It's incredible what he accomplished, right? So by definition of David Plotz, Emily Bazelon, and John Dickerson, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, they are a point of evidence that Dungeons & Dragons is not a game, right? And they are a powerful point of evidence. Why are they a powerful point of evidence? Well, we are fortunate that they had this discussion. And we're fortunate that they had it in the ignorance of the Dungeons and Dragons question, right? And the reason why is many, many questions are leading, right? So if you say, hey, is Dungeons and Dragons a game? That is a leading question, because anybody who answers it has been led by TSR, right? And they were led by TSR from 1974 to 1997. So, TSR put out essentially propaganda, in my opinion, that said this is, that put up facades that this was a game from 1974 to 1997. And I will say, I think no one but Gary knew this, right? Like, none of the CEOs, none of the designers, nobody knew this. I think he knew he had to keep this under wraps, right? I think he literally died with the secret, right? And I also think if you're going to achieve something like this, it's the only way you can do it, right? So 1974 to 1997, you're talking 23 years TSR told people this was a game. And then from 1997 to today, that's 25 more years. 25 more years of WotC telling people Dungeons & Dragons is a game, right? But David Plotz, Emily Bazelon, John Dickerson, they said, what is a game? And what is not a game, right? And by their definition, Dungeons & Dragons is not a game. And I think if you look and you ask the question, what is a game? There are absolutely no clue. There's no evidence that Dungeons & Dragons is a game. There's no win-lose, right? There's no competitors, right? It doesn't function as a game in any way. I think if you look at it realistically and you look at it as an intellectual exercise, there's absolutely no evidence that Dungeons & Dragons is actually a game. It doesn't function like any other game in the world, right? And it is new. It came out in 1974, right? So, yeah, I humbly present this evidence to you that Dungeons & Dragons is not a game. If you listen to 3 highly intelligent American Achiever authors, they'll tell you. I think they've told everybody, right? That's my humble opinion. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.